Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about my top 20 favourite films from 1982. This is all in accordance with the release dates on IMDb, and these are just my personal top 20 favourite films from this year. There's no right or wrong to this list. This is just my opinion on my favourite films. So that being said, I want to get into a few honourable mentions from this year. So to start off with, I've got The Verdict with Paul Newman. Great underrated sort of political drama, this film. Really good. The Last Unicorn. Really good underrated animated film. Victor Victoria with Julie Andrews. Really underrated musical. My last honourable mention is sort of buddy cop comedy movie, 48 Hours with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy. Okay, so yeah, they're my honourable mentions. So cracking on with number 20 from 1982 is Missing with Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek. So this film pretty much follows the father and wife of an American writer that goes missing in South America, and his father and his wife are basically trying to find him throughout the film, constantly going in circles. Great political thriller. I don't want to spoil the end, but it is a fantastic film. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. It's coming in at number 19 for me is Arnold Schwarzenegger in Conan the Barbarian. Early film for Arnold. Not one I loved the first time I saw it, but definitely enjoyed it more the second time. So yeah, Conan the Barbarian's pretty much it's this great sort of adventure film that evolves into sort of revenge film. Not to get into too many details about it, but yeah, if you love Schwarzenegger movies, you've probably already seen this one, but it's definitely one worth checking out. So coming in at the number 18 spot for me is Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. Great fantasy epic, this film. Great designs and usage of practical puppets in this film, which Jim Henson was pretty much a master of. I think Frank Oz also co-directed this as well with Henson. Yeah, just an absolute master of puppetry. Most famous for bringing us the Muppets, and I believe his studio production team did the stuff on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the early 90s, at least the first two films. But yeah, no, this was a great fantasy epic that I really enjoyed. Not one I grew up with as a kid, but I only really saw it for the first time a couple of years ago, but I did enjoy it and thought it was great. So coming in next for me at the number 17 spot is a pretty underrated film, The Last American Virgin. So the 80s sort of brought us its own sort of genre in sort of like teen sex comedy films. And if that sort of genre, if you've seen one, you've seen them all. There's nothing really that sort of separates them. And this film, for the first part of the film, is no different really. It is that sort of teen sex comedy generic type film. But what stood out for me in this film is sort of the last half hour and the ending to this film. It is a complete reality check, the ending to this film, and it delivers such a gut punch. And for a film like this to have the balls it has to pull off that ending is just absolutely fantastic, and it just sticks with you. It's complete reality check, and the end of this film, not to get into spoilers, but the end of this film, given what happens in the film, would happen in real life. Like, that is completely legitimate what the film does at the end, and it is what would happen. And I admire the film for that so much. It sort of reminds me of bit of a weird one, but it sort of reminds me of Night of the Living Dead, the way it has that ballsy attitude towards the end. Great soundtrack in this as well. You've got music from Journey, U2, REO Speedwagon, the Commodores, Quincy Jones. Great soundtrack. As I say, not a blow your socks off movie, but the ending to this film is so strong and so fantastic. Like, I had to rewind the ending because I couldn't believe the film ended that way. I really couldn't. It's just a complete reality check. If you've not seen it, stick with it. It does get better. The last half hour to it is just fantastic. It sort of flips and becomes this whole entirely different film in the last act, and I loved it for it. So if you've not seen it, check it out. So coming up next for me at the number 16 spot is, I believe, the Best Actress winner of this year, and that is Sophie's Choice. The quintessential Meryl Streep film, just powerhouse acting from her, absolutely fantastic. So it sort of follows the life of this Holocaust survivor who's trying to sort of develop a new lease on life as something to live for. But the actual choice that Sophie had to make the film is one she made during the Holocaust, which we find out at the end of the film was an absolutely heartbreaking, impossible decision for anyone to choose, but was forced to by the Nazis. Just fantastic acting in this one. Great film. So coming up next for me, the number 15 spot is a sort of underrated film, bit similar to Sleuth, and it sort of it does star Michael Caine in that as well, and that's Death Trap with Michael Caine and Christopher Reeve. So this is kind of similar to Sleuth for me because of all the twists and turns in the film as well. It sort of follows this playwright who wants to sort of incorporate murder into it. But to talk about the film is to spoil the film, so because it's so keeps your mind going and keeps you on the move. But it's definitely one worth seeing if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me at the number 14 spot is a great sort of horror film with Stephen King is actually in this as well. Great collaboration between George Romero and Stephen King, this one, and that's Creepshow. So yeah, just a fun horror film with these sort of horror segments, each one telling a different story. You've got one with Ed Harris, you've got one with Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen, you've got one with Stephen King himself, who the first time I saw this film I had no idea it was Stephen King. It was only really on the second and third viewing for me that I saw it, but really creepy film, particularly the Leslie Nielsen one for me. The way that one concludes is quite scary and quite frightening, but massively entertaining. Stephen King's son's in it as well, in a segment with Tom Atkins, who actually had to hit Stephen King's son, that he wasn't too happy he had to do that. But yeah, just a great fun film. So next for me at the number 13 spot is Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Stars a young Sean Penn as a sort of stoner surfer dude. Not really much of a plot to this one as well. It's sort of like one of those coming-of-age films. Got some great scenes in this as well. Of course, the memorable one with Phoebe Cates coming out of the swimming pool. It's fantastic. But yeah, hugely enjoyable. What makes this film is probably the characters as well. The scenery. I love those types of 80s movies set in malls as well. And when like students, or not the kids are trying to get jobs and get dates and to try and impress the girls. But yeah, just a fun film. So next for me, the number 12 spot is actually this year's Best Picture winner, and also won Best Actor for Ben Kingsley, and that is Gandhi. Yeah, just an absolute drama biopic epic, directed by Richard Attenborough. Yeah, just a fantastic film. So we pretty much follow. The film opens with Gandhi's assassination, and then it sort of goes back then to when he was younger, and then his sort of, not a rise to power, but his fame grew, and his sort of ideologies. We find out more about that, being a sort of pacifist and not wanting to have pretty much start the non-violent resistance type movement. But it's a great, fantastic film. I believe it still gets shown at schools as well. But yeah, if you want to keep watching the films that won Best Picture, this is a great one. Loved it. So coming up next for me, at the number 11 spot, is Tobe Hooper's film, Poltergeist, produced by Steven Spielberg. So just to get into a bit of the production about this one, there's a bit of a debate as to who actually directed this film, whether it was Tobe Hooper or whether it was Spielberg. If you watched the film and you didn't know who directed it, you would probably have a very good educated guess that it was Spielberg, because it's just full of sort of Spielberg idioms. Great child cast, great setting, great story. Quite a grim, a lot of grim connotations to the Poltergeist franchise as well. A lot of cast members died in horrific ways. The eldest daughter in the film was actually killed by her boyfriend in real life. Heather O'Rourke, who played the youngest daughter, tragically died after the third film due to an unsuccessful operation, I believe. A few cast members in the second one died as well of cancer. Yeah, just a bit of a grim tale of production to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. So it sort of follows this family in this house, and a lot of strange paranormal stuff going on. And the youngest daughter eventually gets sort of sucked into this other dimension through the television. Just some great creepy effects in it as well, particularly one involving one of the investigators and the scene at the mirror, which was actually Steven Spielberg's real, true, actual hands doing that stuff. But yeah, if you've not seen it, check it out. So coming up next for me, at the number 10 spot, is a sequel. Not a great movie, but a good movie and an entertaining one at that. And that is Sylvester Stallone in Rocky 3. Sort of like, well, you've told the story of the underdog in the first one and then the underdog's success in the second one. So the third one just delivers on absolute sheer entertainment. It brings in Hulk Hogan, it brings in Mr. T, and just some great boxing sequences. And this one's introduced the Eye of the Tiger song by Survivor. I believe Stallone wanted to use Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, but couldn't quite get the publishing rights, so he asked Survivor to come up with a song to use instead, and they came up with Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, just a great, entertaining, fun film. So coming up at the number 9 spot for me is a film most people would probably have at their number 1. And it is a Spielberg film as well, and that is E.T. I kind of find this film a tad overrated, but it still is a great film. I know he sort of came up with the idea for this with the divorce of his parents. Sort of got the ball rolling with him and this film. So it pretty much follows this boy Elliot, who lives with his mum and his brother and his sister, and he stumbles across an extraterrestrial who he befriends, and sort of E.T. wants to be his friend as well. And then obviously he's trying to keep it a secret from everyone, and then unfortunately he does get found out, and the government gets involved. But as it's a Spielberg film, it does of course obviously have a happy ending, but some might say it's a bittersweet ending, which it is. But yeah, as I say, for me, just a tad bit overrated, but it's still a very, very good film. Do enjoy it a lot. So coming up next for me at the number 8 spot is a bit of an underrated film, and that is Diner. Pretty much this all-star cast of Kevin Bacon, Steve Guttenberg, Daniel Stern, and Mickey Rourke. So it sort of tells the story of this tight-knit group of friends who one of them is about to get married, and they meet up. And the film, the thing about this film that I find really, really compelling is the movie's characters, particularly Daniel Stern's. Like, for instance, there's a scene involving him and his, I can't remember if it's his wife or his girlfriend, but his partner is looking at his record collection, and she puts something back incorrectly or touches something, and he just pretty much loses his shit. But bit over the top, but I get where he's coming from. I do relate to him in that the way his records are like, all these records are in a specific order because each one reminds me of certain memories in my life. They're important to me. Each one brings back a series of memories. That's why they're in that order, and that's why I keep them that way. Which I sort of relate to about film. Films I've watched when I was younger remind me of episodes in my life, and just a really, really relatable film. Really tapped into this one. Really enjoyed it. So coming up next for me at the number 7 spot is Martin Scorsese's The King of Comedy. Not a film I loved the first time I saw it. Second time, absolutely fell in love with it. Completely missed how much of a character study this film is. So it pretty much follows Robert De Niro's character, who wants to be the king of comedy. Absolutely idolises Jerry Lewis's character, who is a sort of a very successful comedian in New York who's got his own show, and pretty much Robert De Niro wants that life. Absolutely adamant to get it. To get all he wants really is his shot to prove he can do it. But everyone just sort of like gets in the way or doesn't want him to, and he takes it to extremes. Like the end of the film, he ends up kidnapping Jerry Lewis's character and filling in his slot on the television show, and he knows that there's going to be consequences and repercussions to what he's done. But he's like, this is what I have to do to get my shot, to get noticed. These are the extremes I've had to go to actually do what I want to do. I believe he says, at the end towards his act, he says, which he kills at, by the way, as well. Everyone absolutely loves what he's doing, but because he's kidnapped someone, he realises that, I'm going to jail, and I'd rather be remembered as a somebody for that 10 minutes and then have to go to jail than I've not done it and been a nobody for the rest of my life. Takes a lot as well. You can tell a lot of inspiration from this film. Inspired Joker as well. Probably this and Taxi Driver. A lot of those two films are in that film. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. Loved it. Thought it was great. So coming up next for me at the number 6 spot is a sequel to a film not everyone sort of loved, but I enjoyed it. It was in my top films of 1979. But this one delivers more in terms of story and acting and effects, and it's probably considered the best one of its franchise, and that is Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. Picks up from an episode from the original series as well. We see the return of a villain, Khan, in this one. Absolutely great performances by both Khan and Kirk in this film. We never actually see the two meet, come face to face in the film. They do have conversations from ship to ship, but yeah, this film delivers in every way a sequel should. We lose a main character as well at the end of this film as well, not to get into spoilers, which is quite sad. But yeah, just a fantastic sci-fi film. One of the best sci-fi films from the 80s in my opinion, and it's probably regarded as the best Star Trek story for most Star Trek fans as well. I absolutely love this one. Not my favourite Star Trek film. That actually goes to Star Trek 6. But yeah, this is definitely one of the best. Can easily see why it's regarded as the best material from Star Trek. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. So coming in next for me at the number 5 spot is Don Bluth's first film, and that is The Secret of Nim. This sort of dark kids movie about a sort of widow field mouse who is trying to save her dying son, and in order to do that, she has to sort of track down this group of rats who can help. But it's a really, really creepy, dark sort of adventure film. So yeah, Don Bluth films are kind of like the Pepsi to Disney's Coke in that regards. He did do some great films. The animation in this one is absolutely stellar. It's fantastic. The designs of the creatures in it are out of this world, creepy as well. But yeah, I loved it. It's one of those films that was on TV when I was younger, but I didn't catch the name of it, which you sort of go through for many years because we didn't have internet back then. But yeah, thoroughly enjoy it. Totally recommend it. Thought it was really good. So coming up next for me at the number 4 spot is a film that was sort of ahead of its time and really relevant today, I find, and that is Dustin Hoffman in Tutti. So it sort of follows Dustin Hoffman's character, who's this actor who's really difficult to work with and no one really wants to hire him. He's a bit of a perfectionist and got a bit of a reputation. So because he can't get any work as an actor, he decides to dress up as a woman, and he gets a job doing a soap opera, and he finds out as the woman, women aren't treated the best in that industry, and he sort of changes it. He demands respect at work and not to be seen as a sex object, and he inspires all the other women around him as well, off and on the camera. Great supporting cast as well, notably Bill Murray. But yeah, really good, satisfying ending when the status quo sort of brought back to reality. Really satisfying to see when the big reveal happens at the end. But yeah, hugely entertaining and hugely enjoyable. And as I say, probably still holds up and is really relevant even to today's standards. Really, really good film. So coming in at number 3 for me is probably Sylvester Stallone's best performance as an actor. Probably the one he's most going to be remembered for, apart from Rocky. And that is First Blood, the first film in the Rambo series. Really, really good, gritty sort of post-war film. So it sort of follows John Rambo, played by Stallone, who he's come back from the war and all he wants to do is pass through this town. But everybody from the law enforcement just wants to give him, an absolute fucking earache of a time, and, just does not like him, does not want him there. And causes a pretty much a rift that is just so big. It unleashes Rambo's potential pretty much in warfare. The poor guy struggles from PTSD as well from the Vietnam War. So they basically turn him into a one-man army. So all the law enforcement pretty much just don't stand a chance against him. He ends up going into the woods. And actually, I think he only really commits one murder in the film, which causes everyone to go after him. But yeah, as I say, it's a fantastic performance by Stallone. The monologue at the end is fantastic when everything comes to a head. But yeah, this town that wants to give him a hard time are just completely out of the depth and don't know what they're dealing with. And just really entertaining to see in the film medium. Really, really enjoyable film. So coming in at the number 2 spot for me is John Carpenter's The Thing. Absolute masterclass in practical effects. This one, if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that. So it follows this sort of group of scientists in Antarctica who pretty much get invaded by this alien that takes on. It kills someone and then it takes on their form. Which makes it harder to detect. So the film starts off with a husky dog running towards them, and there's a helicopter trying to shoot the husky dog, and they don't know why this helicopter's trying to execute this dog. But the helicopter's actually from a Norwegian camp. And obviously by the end of the film we know why they're trying to kill this pilot's trying to kill the dog. But they take the dog in, put it with their dogs, and all hell breaks loose. The Thing itself actually ends up killing all the dogs, killing most of the crew. Just a really, really good claustrophobic film as well, and constantly questioning trust. That all falls to shit amongst the crew there. But yeah, as I said, Kurt Russell in this film as well, Kurt Russell and John Carpenter just go hand in hand when making films. Absolutely entertaining as hell. Again, not a film I loved the first time I saw it. It took me a couple of watches to get into it. But yeah, no, you feel the cold there as well because it's obviously set in Antarctica. The cold, just you feel it. Yeah, just a fantastic film. Not to get into too much spoilers with it, but as I say, we do see crew members that do die because of what the thing has to do in order to survive. But the effects on when the thing does what it does are so good, so great. Still hold up as well today. The other thing I will say is that flamethrower that Kurt Russell's character uses is pretty effective. Pretty much the slightest thing it touches, everything just everything just goes up in flames. For me, it just looks like a super effective flamethrower. But yeah, no. That being said, it is a fantastic film. I'm rambling about it now, but yeah, check it out if you've not seen it. Another sort of creepy horror film to watch with the lights off as well. Really good. So that brings me to my number one from 1982, which is again the third film now on the bounce to star Harrison Ford, and that is Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. Again, not a film I loved the first time I saw it. Didn't think much of it, to be honest. And then the more and more I watched it, the more and more I fell in love with it. You sort of need to have a little bit of knowledge about film noir as well to appreciate this film. Those types of movies from the 40s, like Sunset Boulevard and Double Indemnity. Because the film is basically that, but in futuristic Los Angeles. You have the detective, you have the voiceover, you have the femme fatale, you have the murder. Yeah, just a fantastic story to this one. Performances, yeah, just great. Great one from Harrison Ford. As Deckard. Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty is just one of the most terrifying villains ever. Absolutely love Rutger Hauer and anything he was in. Just a great actor. The visuals in this film are just on point. Absolutely stunning, gorgeous opening scenes of Los Angeles at the start of the film. So we get a bit of pretext which tells us about the film, which is pretty much replicants were developed which were pretty much identical to human beings in every way. They were used as slave labour in off-world colonies. But the only downside to a replicant is it only has a lifespan of 4 years. And the film follows sort of 4 replicants that escape from these off-world colonies, come to Earth to try and find the creator and seek longer life, is what they're after. And Harrison Ford's characters works as police, but in the future they're called Blade Runners, and it's their job to execute replicants that go rogue, but it's not called execute, it's called retirement. And the film questions whether Harrison Ford himself is an actual replicant. We don't actually know. It's very ambiguous in that way, and it gets you thinking. But yeah, the music as well by Vangelis is superb, who did Chariots of Fire. This great sort of 80s electric sound to the music that I absolutely love. But yeah, as I say, not a film I loved the first time I saw it, but it grew on me the more and more I watched it. Absolutely fantastic film. If you've not seen it and you have seen it and you didn't like it, give it another chance. It's really, really, really fantastic. And that is 3 for 3 for me with Harrison Ford. Now, he's definitely not in my top film from '83, but very impressive that he was in the top 3. That wasn't planned, actually. That was just purely by coincidence. But yeah, no, that is my top 20 favourite films from 1982. One of my favourite years in film. Probably this and 1994. But yeah, just a fantastic year. Bit of a downer. 1983 didn't really deliver that many films that blew my socks off. Probably one of the most disappointing years. But yeah, I'm going to be back with that video soon. I hope you've enjoyed this one. And I'll be back with my top 20 favourite films from '83. So thanks very much for watching and take care.